Hi there! How's it going? I hope everyone's well. I hope the world is treating you well. I guess that counts as my opening phrase in these days. This will be our episode concerning the Kingdom of Ierendi, the fourth in the Gazetteers saga, the known world setting, or Mystara as it's sometimes referred to later on. This is, of course, part of the series I'm doing. I plan on covering them all, because I'm a crazy person. Now, the Kingdom of Ierendi is an interesting one. It's the, like I said, it's the fourth one of the Gazetteers. They had been going for a while at this point, so, they had a picture of how they were going to be looking at this point. And it sort of shows. Now, first let's talk about the writers. You got Ken Ralston, who worked seemingly for everybody back in the 80s. And in particular was involved with one of the significant rewrites on the game Paranoia. He also worked on the Elder Scrolls series of games, Elder Scrolls Morrowind and Elder Scrolls. That would be a different game. Elder Scrolls Oblivion. And he's definitely had an interesting and long career, and recently was even working on a tie-in to Kingdom of Amalur before that company went kablooey. So he's keeping busy. He's definitely part of the video game and world, and certainly has worked on quite a few tabletop role-playing games. The other one is one of the unfortunately few women working in the game, the role-playing game field in the early days. This is not to say that there weren't some, but it was certainly a male-heavy field. And this was written by Anne C. Gray, or sometimes, apparently at some point she becomes Anne Gray McCready, or it may be the other way around. I'm not really sure. Wikipedia. I only skimmed the Wikipedia on her, and it gave it as Anne Gray McCready. So, also looking at Wikipedia on her, it turns out that she was, among other things, the writer on a module called Red Sonja Unconquered, which now I need to track that down, because I didn't even know that existed. I knew they did some Conan ones, but I didn't know that they did a Red Sonja one, and I kind of want to track that down and read it and see if it's any good. Now, as to the Kingdom of Ierendi itself, the Gazetteer is, it's interesting. It has an odd mix of both modern and archaic elements. It's got a strong piratey feel, because it is 10 islands located on the northwest corner of the Sea of Dread. Now, the Sea of Dread gets introduced and detailed somewhat in Isle of Dread and some other modules that come later. But this module, this Gazetteer, is for a set of islands on the northwest corner of the Sea of Dread. Set of 10 islands. There's a piratey feel to it, but there's also sort of vaguely reminiscent of Jamaican or Caribbean cultures in there, or possibly even some South Pacific islands. One aspect that also gets pushed in here that is particularly odd, but refreshing, I think, is the idea of Ierendi being a tourism destination. Now, it's kind of an adventure tourism thing, It's sort of like if Jurassic Park were a real place, and the advertising for it said, "You might get eaten by dinosaurs, but there's treasure too." That's kind of Ierendi. So it's got that element to it. The different islands have different sort of aspects that they deal with. The two that don't allow visitors are interesting. There's one ruled by druids, and those druids are remnants of an Ithian empire that they talked about in the Emirates of Yalarum that got wiped out. Well, yeah, some remnants of that culture remain, but they can't talk to anyone. They are speaking gibberish that cannot be translated, even with magic. So, they're on the Isle of Wight. I don't know if the English are going to object to that, but we'll see. Now, the other island that you can't get to is Honor Island, which is ruled by mages, and has all kinds of wackiness. Interdimensional portals inside of a volcano, with a harbor that has fire ships that go out and occasionally, save Ierendi from horrible destruction. It's a wacky time. It's a wacky place. And actually, the whole setting's a little odd, because it is presented as, here's a tourism destination. The in-character portion in the books actually is sort of, here's a tour guide explaining where you're going, and what you should do when you get in the market, or what you should do here and there. So it's interesting in that regard too. Now, it does talk about the government in here, like it did with the others. In this case, it has an interesting sort of way of dealing with government. They have a king or a queen, and they are chosen by a royal tournament every year. And then there is a tribunal made up of a bunch of, cabinet heads who are members of aristocratic families. There's a cabinet of the interior and so on. And these people, sort of control the day-to-day running of the country in some regards. And they are the ones who preside over the tournaments and sort of decide who gets to win and who doesn't, to a certain extent. Anyone who tries to become a king gets off and fails, king or queen, gets offered membership in the Adventurous Club. Yes, it's an Adventurous Club. This is not a 1920s pulp action adventure game, but they have an Adventurous Club. And that's actually kind of awesome. If you basically put yourself forward, I think I'm good enough to be king. I'm going to compete in the tournament of adventurers. If you don't make it, they go, well, you're still pretty neat. Let's give you a membership in the Adventurers Club. You can stay at the Adventurers Club for free, though you do have to pay for all your other stuff. And you get something like a noble title. You get referred to as Sir, or I guess Dame in the case of women. And to maintain membership, you have to keep trying to become king or queen. It's weird. I'm not going to lie. That sounds a bit odd. But it also, the notion of an adventurers club, where people get to hang, basically, this is where we live when we're not off, saving the world. And that's a national thing. Kind of makes me happy. Now, there are in this book a lot of adventure hooks. They give a huge list of them, and it does it in such a manner that it, like in the previous Gazetteer, tells you, what level range this would be appropriate for, by telling you what box set would be appropriate. So basic would be like the first few levels, expert, companion, master, and Immortals is the last set. This sort of lists the adventures based off of what levels it fits in there, although it doesn't have any for Immortals. You get the idea. It kind of gives a level range, which is useful, I think. And it gives it for the various different islands. Different islands have different problems. There's one island that's sort of trying to settle more people onto it because the people who had been living there were killed off by disease, and the prisoners that they were using this as a prison colony for now outnumber the people who were actually, natives there, and so there's that. It's a weird sort of setup on that island, I won't lie, but it's kind of a neat sort of built-in political conflict that I think is nice. But, they've got adventure hooks for that one. They've got adventure hooks for the islands that you're not supposed to go to. Because, well, of course you're going to go to the places you're not supposed to go to. You're adventurers. That's what you do. Now, there are a number of other items in here. There is a section on naval warfare and how to run a naval warfare scene, which is neat. I think it's a neat attempt. It's a little clunky on reading the rules, but the fact that they thought, you know what, we need these rules in here and ran with it is a good idea, and I liked it. It is very GM heavy, Gazetteer. Players probably you wouldn't want your players to read a lot of this if you wanted this to be a mystery to them. If you wanted them to be adventurers coming from somewhere else and discovering Ierendi and seeing, finding their way around, you would not want them to read this. But what they do have is a little handout that can copy or what have you. And that handout is designed to seem like a tourism brochure. Sort of, come see the islands, and here's all the wonderful attractions that you can do, and, oh, by the way, here are the ads for local businesses. Yes, it actually includes ads for local businesses, which are characters mentioned in the rest of the book as, here's an adventure hook with this guy, an adventure hook with this guy. It's neat. It also actually calls to the other Gazetteers quite a bit, in that, there are elements that are sort of bleed-overs from the other Gazetteers. There is a guy who is the brother of a major villain or the cousin of a major villain in Karamikos. The faith that is the true faith that is found in Yalarum. There's a large contingent of its followers on the islands. There's, a number of little things like that tie into the various things. But what they don't do is, you need to read the background information in this adventure, and this adventure, and this adventure to get anything out of this. Which is nice. It's better than what I saw in the third one. And the information that they take from those other Gazetteers, they give you at least a brief, here's what you really need to know about them to be able to do anything with them, without actually, making it a thing where you had to go buy the other Gazetteer just to be able to use them. Now, that said, overall, I like this Gazetteer. It's in some ways one of my favorite. I love the notion of an adventurers club. I love the notion of adventure tourism, that people are coming there on vacation to go hunt treasure and do things like that. I think it's a little too meta, a little too modern on some levels for, what's the term? Verisimilitude? Verisimilitude? I think that's on it. Talking, it's hard. But that sense of it being a believable and real place, it's kind of hard to buy into that with the rest of the stuff that goes on there. But it does have a lot of really nice adventure ideas, and I like the notion of just embracing the fact that they are adventurers. It's very spirit of the century to a certain extent, and I can respect that, and I think that's a neat idea. The culture is not filled with a lot of tongue-in-cheek jokes, which is good. Getting a little too jokey with the culture write-up can make me sort of tune out on the world. So the fact that they didn't go that way makes me happy. The artwork in it is actually pretty solid. I liked it. There's, the artwork in all of the Gazetteers makes me sort of wish to see a modern redo with new art and everything. Not because the art is bad, but there isn't a whole lot of it throughout. This one in particular does a good job of it, though. It actually shows some character portraits, like labeled, here is this character, and just about every section has a scene from that island, so you can sort of get an idea of what they want you to see in that regard. So it's probably the best one so far on the art side. That said, I'm liking Kingdom of Ierendi. I'm not certain that I have crazy ideas of what I would want to do in Kingdom of Ierendi, but in principle and its overall design choices, I like it. So, it's definitely worth picking up. Now, as with before, you can pick it up at D&D Classics for cheap, or you can go to, say, Noble Knight Games or eBay, or maybe find it at a used bookstore, pay a little bit more, but have a physical copy. And both are perfectly valid things to do. I found that, looking at the Gazetteer that I actually own the physical copy of, that I certainly prefer that to the ebook format. A few reasons. One, these are scanned PDFs rather than somebody going in and redoing them in a proper PDF format. So it can be a little hard to sort of adapt to it, I guess. It's hard to explain. You can tell one that's designed to be read on a digital screen and one that's designed to be print. They have different design elements, and so that's a problem with PDFs. Also, the other problem with the Gazetteers overall is they were relatively thin, so they had to be very picky about what to put in there. So I found myself going, well, what's the story with this thing? And how do I use this thing over here? And it's just not there. So I'd have to come up with it, which is fine. I like being creative. I like coming up with my stuff. But I could see somebody picking it up and going, but I wanted to know what this thing was, and now I don't know where to find out more about it, because maybe they're a new DM or what have you. So it's something to think about. Overall, like I said, good example in the Gazetteer line. I like it better than the third one. Actually, I think it may be, of the ones I've read so far, it's up in the air between this one and the second one. The second one has a very strong sort of thematic line all the way through it, and sort of, this is where you are, this is what the culture is like, so on. This one's a little harder to read the culture, but it's a little better organized for a game master to use in different adventures. It's a broader swath of Ierendi rather than concentrating on certain small portions. But I liked Yalarum for the overall feel of the nation and the fact that they did keep it very recognizably, okay, this is what this is about. So I'm up in the air, but I tend to lean towards this one right now. So far, this is my favorite of the ones I've been doing the reviews on. Now, some of the later ones, I think, may actually supplant this when I get to Thyatis and Alphasia. But for right now, this one is sort of taking the lead. The other thing that it causes me to consider, considering the overall line so far, is there are a lot of ties to the Immortals. So I need to get a copy of the Immortals rules, for one. And for another, if you're doing that in a 5th edition game, I'm not sure how well that ties in. Because, to a certain extent, the goal, once you had the Immortals set, was to get your character up to the Immortals range and have them become candidates to become Immortals and go on from there. So, I don't know. It's a tricky proposition. But it's certainly not a game stopper in using it in 5th edition. It was just something that had occurred to me yet again while reading about some of the ways it ties into the Immortals and how they relate to Yalarum and what have you, Yalarum and Ierendi and what have you. There are references to the Old Man in the Sea in both this book and Yalarum, and they're both, and that's an immortal, and it references the journey to becoming an immortal, following in his footsteps, and so on. So there are certainly some elements there that I do feel like I should go back and see if I can find a copy of the Immortals rules just to read them and get a clearer understanding of how those things work out on a rules level. That said, this has been my review. I hope you liked it. I hope you subscribe, like, share with all the people. I'm going to be moving on to the next one, which I believe is the Elves of Elfheim, which should be interesting. It's the first one where it's a non-human culture nation, and I look forward to digging into that one. But before that happens, I'll probably have a Let's Play on Shadowrun and some other things. It'll be another week or two before I get that one out. Anyway, that's what to expect. And beyond that, nothing else to report. Stay out of trouble and enjoy your adventure tourism, I guess. See you later.